Well, welcome everybody to the Barna Resilient Pastor Podcast, where we help pastors find wisdom, hope, and courage to lead well in a changing world. I'm Glenn Packiam, and this podcast is part of Barna's mission to encourage and equip pastors to be resilient. And that means spiritually, emotionally, in their leadership. And so the goal here is that together we'll explore some new research, have some real conversations to help you understand the times and know what to do. And if you're not doing so already, go to barna.com and sign up for free Barna, the free Barna email, and you can access the latest Barna articles, resources, special discount offers, and more. Guys, it's March Madness. We know that Sharon is a Duke fan. And I'm just curious, how mad do you get in March Madness?
Go to you, Sharon, because I have
medium mad.
Medium mad. Well, I mean, did you do a bracket? Did you do a party? Like, what do you cancel work? What do you do?
I thought I'd share this with you. So I y'all, when y'all talk about sports, 99% of the time, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. I don't even know, you could name a team and I don't know what actual sport you are talking about. But when it comes to Duke basketball, it's kind of the opposite. But my emotional investment is actually so high that I have to emotionally distance myself from it. And so I sort of I've learned over the years, and you have to understand, I'm in the middle. Our church is literally in between Duke and UNC. And so this past month when UNC, it was just a heartbreaker. They beat us at the very end. And then I had to go to church the next morning where I would have people at my church who I love and I assume love me, but then come up to me and get an inch from my face and say, "Go Heels." I think they're coming to encourage me, and then
Sharon.
said that's what they say straight to my face. And so
That's not right.
Grounds for excommunication in my book. If this was my church,
I have to guard my heart by keeping kind of an emotional distance. But that's so medium mad.
That was a tough game. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. And you have you're pastoring in divisive times, Sharon.
Yep. So, but I mean, we always say Jesus tore down the dividing wall of hostility. And so, but we haven't embodied that fully yet. So,
there it is. I don't watch. In the 90s, I used to record March Madness games back in the Stone Age there on my VHS tapes and everything like that. But so now, it's okay now. And I don't have, St. John's basketball is probably where I'm most emotionally invested, but it takes a while these days. I've never done a bracket, by the way. I've never done a March Madness bracket.
What?
Never once in my life. Maybe.
What?
Yeah, no, not, yeah. And I don't plan. I just
never.
And I think part of it is also I can get so obsessed. I have an obsessive thing to me where if I start going down that road, I'm already in a bad place with my regular sports teams. I add now March Madness to that. I'm really in an emotionally dysregulated place.
Yeah. No, you know what? I don't care about college basketball. I am. It's fun. The actual tournament is fun, but I have no emotional investment. That's true. But I'm very emotionally invested in my pro teams. That's true, Rich. I can relate. Yeah. Well, guys, we have something different to talk about today. Sports. Maybe here's a hard segue. Sports. It might be one of the few places that AI is not going to dominate. Except there's analytics. So we're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about AI. But before we get into that, we want to thank one of our partners, World Vision. And today, together in partnership with Danielle Strickland, 10 by 10 and the Barna team, they've created a free resource to equip parents, pastors, and leaders as you guide the spiritual lives of the kids and teens in your care. And so if that sounds like a resource that would benefit you, download Parenting the Open Generation at worldvision.org/resilient26. Hey, we want to take a moment to thank one of our partners, PushPay. This episode is brought to you by PushPay, the leading payments and engagement provider for mission-based organizations. Visit pushpay.com to explore how their digital solutions can support your mission and your vision for the future of your ministry. Later today, I'm going to be sitting down with Jay Kim to talk about what it means to lead faithfully in a digital and AI-shaped world. And, Jay, as people will know, is lead pastor at Westgate Church, which is in San Jose, Silicon Valley in California. Known for his work on spiritual formation in a digital age, has authored books such as Analog Christian, Analog Church, Listen, Speak. He's got a new one coming out soon. And so before we get to my conversation with Jay, I just wanted us to kind of reflect for a minute. Barna has partnered with PushPay on new research to explore how churches are engaging in technology and how church leaders are experiencing its impact. When we talk about tech in the church, this could be anything, just so we frame this, anything from mobile church apps, church management database software, which I assume most of us use, social media, AI tools, and more. And so here's some of the stats. One of the clearest findings is that pastors are generally optimistic about technology's role in ministry. In fact, 9 out of 10 pastors agree that digital ministry tools open new opportunities. It's kind of cool. 31% strongly agree, 61% somewhat agree. Sharon, I just want to start with you because you are you're techie. What kind of tech do you guys use at Bright City, and what has been helpful for you guys, even as a church that you're not a church plant anymore, but from the ground up? How did you decide what apps and tech to use?
Mm-hmm. So I am not techie. I will say I am the opposite of techie. Like, I have a MDiv. I'm a religion major, and that is all that you need to know. However, I have been really grateful for the people on our staff who are techie, especially the younger people on our staff. Like, one of the things that I'm definitely on the learning curve with everybody else on how to start incorporating AI. And I told you guys before we started recording that one of the things I'd wanted to talk about was the article that I sent you guys like late at night. I sent you I guess that's true. You're on West Coast time. It was like 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I was like, I need you to talk me down off the ledge, because I had read this article about how AI was, going to bring about the end of the world, essentially. Like, all these, 50% of white collar jobs would be lost. However, one of the takeaways from that article was also the importance of incorporating it. And so the very next morning, I actually met with our production worship pastor. He is very conversant, I guess, in AI. He incorporates it into his work regularly and is using it to start coding it's starting to write the code for a lot of the programs that we're doing. And so I asked him to start taking the lead on this and asked him, how can you incorporate AI into what we are already doing that will free up our staff to prioritize people? And so we're kind of like having those conversations now, but I am grateful for our younger staff who are frankly like light years ahead of me in some of these things.
How about you, Rich? So just curious. I mean, we'll come back, Sharon, to your thing there about that AI article, Doomsday, but just in terms of using tech apps, what's that like for you guys, Rich?
It's interesting. I think in this podcast here, we have 3 levels of engagement. Sharon, no tech, whatever, no techie, and me is probably kind of like a little techie. And Glenn is a lot techie. And so that's my AI synthesis of just our podcast right now. And so New Life over the years, I mean, we've been a little behind the curve. And yet, I mean, we do stuff like whether we have our church database, which has been so helpful, and the app using that. Texting to give, like, I didn't think anyone was texting. And it turns out 12 to 15% of what we receive comes in via texting to give. And so things like that, super new to us. But also, I mean, in recent times, and Glenn, this is, because of your influence in my own life, just using AI to just name trends. Like, what are the trends? So even looking at Christmas offering, like, we've been using AI to help us understand over the last 5 years, what are the trends we need to pay attention to in terms of just Christmas offerings, or in terms of various ministries in our church? What are things we need to pay attention to? And so in terms of synthesizing data and helping us to understand where we're flourishing, where we are languishing, those things have been really helpful for us. And over the years, I think increasingly so at New Life.
It's funny. I was not always as tech favorable or tech forward. I remember, like, this is a long time ago, but when at my previous church, they were introducing a database software, like put people's names in and all this stuff. I objected. I was a young know-it-all. I was reading Eugene Peterson. It was like, pastoral ministry needs to be personal and local. We don't need an app to tell us people's names. We should, and I'm so embarrassed when I think about it, because honestly, I think it's wrong to put these as, it's a false dichotomy to go, we just need to know our people. We don't need technology. I think that is what the app is for. It is to help us know our people. And I can't tell you how much I've been helped by pulling up our database app and going, all right, so-and-so's name, or what are the ages of their kids again? What are their spouse's name? And of course, there's all kinds of things that it can automate or make in systems for us, with like birthdays and like remembering things. And so anyway, Sharon, just a little bit on this AI thing. Where's the concern pastorally, not just in us utilizing it to it seems like pastors are favorable about utilizing it for our means. So AI as a tool, not a master, a servant, not a master, but where your nervousness is more pastoring people in a world that's going to be reshaped or disoriented by AI. Share about that.
Yeah, so we are, this area, there's Research Triangle Park. And so we have a lot of tech and pharmaceutical companies here. And so everything that this article, and if you're not familiar with what I'm referring to, it was on, I found it on Twitter and it went viral, but it was written by a guy who works with AI. And the title of it, the title of it was something kind of ominous, like,
something big is happening. Yeah, something big is happening. Yeah.
And I think, he compared it to COVID in terms of the scope of its impact. And so I think that's what really got so many people's attention. But then he said, I think that this is going to lead to the loss of like 50% of white collar jobs. And because I am in an area that has so many jobs like that, like a high concentration, I kind of thought, what is this going to look like if this many people in our area like lose their jobs? And so that's when I texted you guys in like a panic of like, what do you make of this article? What do you do? And Glenn, I think you said like, oh, they're like ahead of it already, and they're already like planning for it, and I think there's been some kind of rebuttals since then.
Yeah.
But I do think like, and I don't think it's going to happen like 2 years from now. Like they're all like, all these people are going to be laid off in the next 2 years or something like that. But that was definitely behind my, like, if we're kind of on the forefront of a major revolution in a sense, that's going to change the face of the workforce, that's going to create a lot of instability and financial instability. And is that something that we need to prepare for?
Yeah. How are you feeling that out in New York, Rich?
From a pastoral perspective on this here, in terms of kind of like, how do we put boundaries or ensure that we're relating to this in a way that's healthy? A couple of quotes come to mind. I think it was Neil Postman in the late 80s, early 90s. He wrote a book called Technopoly. And he had this one phrase where technology can very easily go from a tool to intruder. So that's kind of his phrase, tool to intruder. And he's writing about this before the internet. He's writing about this before 24/7 news. And so I think having a healthy awareness of the impact is number one. Dr. King talked about it. Of course, he's talking about now technology in service of like nuclear weapons and atomic bombs and all the rest there. He talks about our theology. We have allowed our technology to outrun our theology. And that's kind of his line along that there. Yeah. No, exactly right there. And so, and then the last part, a number of years ago, I read a book by Arthur Bowers called Living into Focus. And he wrote about focal practices and why they're important. But one of the things he talked about was we're not ready for any kind of technological use or implementation without first trying to weigh what might be the impact.
Yeah.
And so it's a recognition, I think, of sin. I think it's a recognition of the human temptation to use technology in a way that's in the service of power and greed and not love and care. And so unless we're having those conversations pastorally about how this impacts, and I think generally, the works of poets, the works of artists, I think serve as a helpful frame when thinking about technology. Because if we're outsourcing all creative work and we're outsourcing some of the heavy lifting that God has called us to be creatives in, I think we're going to miss out on some really important matters of how we grow as a pastoral presence in this world here. And so recognizing the capabilities that we have, the contemplative, creative possibilities, I think can provide a much needed correction in terms of just how technology just overtakes our lives.
Yeah, there's so much there, and Jay and I, get into a lot of these explorations because I think there are layers. Sharon, you're naming an economic effect, but there's also what effect does it have on our humanness? What does it have effect does it have on our, so the empire always runs on the engine of efficiency. How can we get more with less? That's Egypt, right? More bricks, less straw. And so there's some ways in which efficiency is a good thing because we've lowered the cost, but we've created more capital. And in a society that runs on capital, that's a good thing. Theoretically, it could help people flourish. But I know I talked to a tech CEO recently who said, we thought it was not going to eliminate certain kinds of jobs, but now it actually is, And so there is a reality there that's coming. I also want to say, sometimes I get a little frustrated with the poets and prophets, Rich, who they were more like me, kind of like almost imagining that these things are not already here. So it has helped me to think of AI as augmented intelligence rather than artificial or even aggregated intelligence and that sort of thing. But perhaps the key here is to not let intelligence cross over into presence. Because presence is the thing only God can give and only God's image bearers can give. Intelligence, machines can give. Presence is godlike, Anyway, man, there's a lot here. Can't wait to get into this. And we're gonna go now to my conversation with Jay. Well, Jay Kim, my man, my collaborator in the West Coast Church Collective, running the streets, California, north and south. How are you, bro? Good to see you, Jay.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Yeah, West Coast, best coast. Not to marginalize some of the audience here, but
sunsets only.
That's right. That's right.
Listen, man, you have been such a helpful person to me in my journey at Rock Harbor. You've been such a great voice of wisdom, and I view you as an incredibly thoughtful person, and you've developed frameworks and ways of thinking. And today, today's conversation is all about tech. You pastor right in the heart of Silicon Valley. You're surrounded by Apple, Park, Meta, Google. They're all around you. These are the people that go to your church. So your perspective is needed because I think sometimes when the church talks about this, it sometimes speaks out of ignorance. We speak of that which we do not know. And so we create these caricatures. Oh, tech is terrible. It's bad. It's coming for your soul. Or we speak uncritically. And we go, oh, this is amazing. It's another way to spread the gospel. And so I want to kind of nuance the conversation and maybe let's start here. There's some positives. Technology is fostering connection and opportunity. So Barna did some research recently in partnership with PushPay, which is a great platform for giving and for databasing, creating connections. And they found out that pastors are kind of approaching technology sort of thoughtfully or optimistically. In fact, 9 out of 10 church leaders agree that digital ministry tools, now that's carefully worded, digital ministry tools open new opportunities for ministry. And so that's 9 out of 10, that's 90%. And then nearly 80% say technology has actually helped our congregation feel more connected. I have some ideas about why that might be the case, but what are your thoughts on that? How do you use tech at Westgate?
Yeah, I mean, The thing that's so encouraging to me is that the key is connection. That pastors are looking at these, one, as tools. I think that's appropriate. And I think that has to become more than just the language we use. I think it has to be the framework. When I engage, whether it's AI or any other digital platform, this is a tool. Another way to put it, to get a bit more granular, is I think that digital, there is an opportunity here in the digital age, and with increasing sort of digital technologies that are growing at a really rapid pace. There is an opportunity. I mean, I'm not sure that the local church has ever had as big of a front door as we have now. And thinking about technology, using the imagery of a house has been helpful for us. This is something we talk about on our staff actually quite a bit, and with our leaders, that digital technologies are the greatest front door that the church has had, at least in all of my years as a pastor, and probably ever, in terms of how big that front door is. And when you think about the front door of your house, it is the entry point for everybody and anybody, whether it's the UPS delivery guy or it's your child coming home from college. Regardless of the relationship, everybody enters through the front door. And I think all church leaders would probably agree, the end goal, the destination, the desired destination for our people is not the front door, because we don't see our people as, functional sort of utilitarian people where they're delivering us a good. The UPS delivery guy drops off the package at the front door. You might say hello, you grab the package, and they're on their way. But the primary metaphor of the Bible, as most people know, for the church is family. And so when family shows up, they still come to the front door. And we have a big, wide open front door now because of digital technologies, which means that more and more people have an opportunity to step into the home and become family. So as long as pastors and church leaders are thinking about the technology as a tool or as a front door, with the desire being, digital is not the destination, it's just the entryway. The destination would be the dining room table, or the living room, where we're actually communing together in embodied ways. And I'm actually quite encouraged as well, just when I talk to pastor friends, church leaders around the country and right here in Silicon Valley, there seems to be a really grounded, responsible, wise sort of approach. And so I would just affirm that approach, see it as a front door. Digital technologies offer us tons of information. Pastoral responsibility then is to offer wisdom in the midst of that information, and to offer invitation and not just content. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's pinch zoom or double click or whatever, and let's name some of this a little bit, Jay. Do you guys have a church app that you use?
We do. We have an app, and the app has been really helpful. The app, one of the interesting things is it sounds a little bit backwards. One of the reasons we use an app is we have moved away from inundating people with a bunch of announcements when we gather. And that's a whole other conversation about sort of our ecclesiology and our philosophy and theology of what it means and what we're trying to accomplish when we gather together. And so we have we've put everything on the app. So our app has become increasingly so a front door for us.
Yeah.
And people ask me this question all the time, because a number of years ago I wrote a couple of books with the word analog in them.
They came to wrong conclusions.
People think I'm a Luddite or something, and the truth is our church has an app, and that's been a real gift for us.
Yeah.
We post our sermons online.
Yep.
We do stream our services. That's a
social
whole other
media
conversation.
Yeah.
We have social media, but all of it is front door stuff.
I love that.
All of it is, hey man, when you're ready, we'd love to host you.
I love the idea of the front door thing. I mean, I would say, our comms director, amazing person that we know, Lauren Peterson, she thinks of it as each kind of tech has a different sort of purpose. And I think it's important for pastors or to have your teams really ask yourself, what is this particular tech or platform best at? And that's again the precision idea of tools. Like you have a toolbox, you don't use a screwdriver like a hammer unless you're me, you know, and that doesn't work very well, you know. So in a similar way, we have decided or discovered that Instagram or social media is the tool that it's aimed at outsiders, people who are not yet here. It might reinforce the message, whatever, but it's not primarily a bulletin board. It's primarily a peek in the window kind of thing, in a good way. Look over the fence. You know, here's what's happening in the backyard. The app is an insider function. So there's things where if you're here, this is your best way to stay connected and to give and to grow. So you know, we started with our app primarily as, hey, here's the streaming. Then a couple of years ago, we're like, oh, let's add the message notes in there. So if you're on a Sunday morning, I might mention, hey, if you want to add the notes, here it is. Then the app features got better to where you can actually type in the notes that are preloaded, and it becomes you know, something you can email yourself, all that. Well, now, Jay, we're doing this year-long journey through the Bible, Enter the Story, 50 key episodes of the Bible story. The team has created exclusive video content that's exclusive to the app. And so there's a Monday 5-minute video, 3 to 5 minute video that's a deeper study. On Wednesday, there's a devotional reflection of that same chapter that we covered on Sunday. And then Friday, there's a guided prayer. So we're immersing ourselves in one chapter of the Bible each week of the year. And the app is the home for some of those resources. Now, what's amazing, we had about 3 or 4 times the number of app downloads in January than we had in any previous month. In other words, what I'm trying to say to people who are listening is you find the thing that the tool is best at, and you're looking for the intersection of what the tool does best and what people want most or what people need most, right? And that's where you're kind of doing it. But you said something earlier about the pastoral stuff, the formation alongside it. Jay, what I've loved about you and your team and the way you lead is formation is front and center for you guys. And you have a Westgate kind of rule of life. And I've seen that even on your website and your app, you're reminding people of these, let's call them analog rhythms that are embedded in the tech. You want to share some of that and what led to that decision?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is about, you know, as I'm listening to you talk about the way Rock Harbor uses the app and the thoughtfulness behind what each platform is sort of designed to do. One of the things that comes to mind for me, it's, you know, this is not language that's original to us, but it's language we use internally on our team. What we say all the time is not just with technology, but with almost everything we do, we want to hold a for you posture toward our congregation in our city, not a from you. And I think, especially with social media, if we are not intentional, many social media platforms, they devolve and default to becoming a sort of from you type of mechanism. Basically, what we communicate through Instagram or through an app or whatever it might be is essentially we're just telling you through this mechanism what we need from you. We need you to show up to this thing or to go to that or to go to this. And we want people to show up and we want people, but the way we communicate it is no, this is for you. We want to offer to you a gift that we think will help you more and more become the person God has asked you to become. So it's not surprising to me that there's been an increase in the downloads of the Rock Harbor app because you are offering things to your people that feels very directly, oh, this is for me. This is going to enrich my life in God. And the reason I share that is because, yes, we try to, like the phrase we use all the time is we believe digital informs and analog transforms.
Ooh,
so
come on, bro.
The way you can think about that is, you know, I can sit at home and watch all of the YouTube videos I could possibly find about CrossFit. And I can have all the information on how to do all of the CrossFit exercises. But for my body to actually change, for my body to transform, I am going to have to participate in a physical, embodied, place-based, people-oriented sort of way. And so, yeah, we have these practices, a sort of communal rule of life that is embodied. They're embodied they're place-based, they are people-oriented, they're communal. So it's all the stuff that all of us do and point our people to. And, it's nothing new. It's gathering together. It's centering ourselves around the word of God, daily rhythms of prayer, shared meals, community, silence, confession, all those sorts of things. Participation in a number of different ways. But we have found, as you have as well, that digital tools and technology, it allows us to continue to offer things that are for our people beyond just the 75, 80, sometimes 90 minutes we're together on a Sunday. And as long as we are aware that the tool is a mechanism for offering to people what we believe is for them, so that they might, again, more enliven and deepen their life with God, then we'll use the tool all day long, because the tool is simply an invitation for people to live, again, in more embodied, place-based, people-oriented ways. So again, it comes back to the same sort of concept. Putting the tool in its rightful place allows the tool to be the thing that it should be, and protects us from allowing the tool to sort of use us, and form us in ways that we don't want to be formed.
I want to pause our conversation for a moment and just say a special thank you to our partners at World Vision. World Vision has spent decades empowering the most vulnerable children all around the world. And now, in partnership with Danielle Strickland, 10 by 10, and our friends here at Barna, they've created a free resource to equip parents, pastors, and leaders as you guide the spiritual lives of the kids and teenagers in your care. Parenting the Open Generation offers 9 practical principles to help you navigate the real challenges that today's teens are facing and to support their faith formation in meaningful and grounded ways. So download Parenting the Open Generation at worldvision.org/resilient26. Again, that's worldvision.org/resilient26. We've also linked it in today's show notes. I wanted to take a second to thank one of our incredible sponsors, PushPay. For 15 years, PushPay has been developing technology purpose-built for the church, and they're proud to be the pace setter for the latest technology that fits the unique needs of today's ministries. As the landscape of both technology and ministry continues to evolve, PushPay continues to innovate, like their new AI policy generator, a first-of-its-kind tool that guides leaders through the process of creating custom AI guidelines to direct your staff and volunteers on best practices and accepted AI use cases. You can find the AI policy generator along with all of PushPay's latest innovations at pushpay.com. And now let's get back to our conversation. I mean, two just gold insights, do we want something from you or is this for you? And I'm thinking about this, some more data here is 6 out of 10 church leaders say their church uses 5 or more digital tools. Some of the top being, of course, social media, online giving, live stream, church management software, all that. The question is not just adoption, like that you're using tech. Ooh, good job. The goal is how, and I love what you're saying. Use it so that we're not just asking for something from people, but we're giving something, we have something for people. But then the other one that the digital can inform, but the analog transforms. You race through some of those rhythms and rule of life stuff, but I think I would really love to hear you unpack that just in detail here, Jay, of like, this is the rhythms that we invite our whole church to, and then this is how the app kind of supports that or opens the door, if you will, for them to enter into that.
Yeah, none of it is rocket science. It's stuff that's similar to, what you're doing at Rock Harbor. I'll just give 1 or 2 sort of simple examples. So, praying through the daily examen or the Ignatian examen is a part of our sort of communal rule. We invite our entire church family to do it. We created a sort of family examen, that parents could do with kids, because obviously it's a different experience when you've got young children. So we wanted to make that accessible. And so all of that stuff goes on our app. We point people to it. And it's an accessible tool that's sort of right there. There are all sorts of mechanisms that our team, people way smarter than me have, where people can opt in or out depending on sort of what works best for them. They can opt in or out to having sort of automated prompts that remind them on a daily basis, like, hey, spend time with the Lord in the examine, and here are the movements. So things like that have been really helpful for us, where we give people the optionality, because again, we're trying to offer something for them. We're not saying sort of blanket statement, this is what we need from you, the church, and instead we're saying all of us, we live our lives at a particular pace with a particular rhythm. And so we want this to work for you. And at the same time, we try to guard against, sort of making things that are over customizable. We don't want to be the Chipotle sort of pick and choose what you want. It is a communal rule, because we, as a church family, just our best sort of sense right now in this season is that God, by his Spirit, is pointing all of us collectively in this particular direction. So we want it to work for you. It is for you, but we are also inviting you, if you would find it helpful, to join us on this sort of singular journey that we're going on together as a church. And we have found that digital tools are really helpful along those lines. So things you said about these sort of short little video prompts, those are things that we do as well, whether it's a quick devotional or just a reminder prompt. Hey, today, as you go about your day, as a church family, can we consider this sort of reality as we deepen and enrich our life with God? So, and then we do all the standard stuff. I mean, digital technologies do have a way, if they're leveraged correctly, to make participation far more accessible. So if we believe, for example, that financial participation, and tithes and offering or worship giving or whatever your church might call it, is a formational reality that God forms us. For example, here where I live and where you live, Glenn, for me here in Silicon Valley, I would say money and wealth is one of the primary idols here. And it's true in much of the developed world, but it's certainly uniquely true in Silicon Valley. So, financial participation and worship giving in ways that God is calling each of us. It's not just about funding ministry. It's not just about making budget. We really think that it's a formational tool that forms us into the people God's called us to be. And so digital technology has been a really helpful tool to make participation far more accessible. But having that sort of thoughtfulness behind it, and instead of just saying like, let's just get more people to give more money and pump this out there, that sort of approach I think really matters.
Well, a couple of things that you're just, it's so brilliant, Jay, because you're resisting the urge to functionalize this. And I think tech left unchecked without a human guide will squeeze everything towards functionalizing. What's the, how do we optimize? How do we, but the other thing that tech left unchecked can do is it can individualize. And so I know we learned this from you, is how to thread the preaching with the discipleship opportunities with the individual stuff, and how to thread it together so that it all feels like, or not just feels like, is a communal journey. So for you guys, a community rule of life, and for us, this particular year, this year-long journey through the Bible, those are ways to get strategic about tech, not just pragmatic about tech. And that's what I think pastors, you don't have to be a tech expert, but what you can bring to the conversation with your team is come up with a strategy and a theology so that when the team is saying, let's create this content and let's utilize this platform and let's do this, you can go, and here's why, and here's what the telos is at the end goal. Yeah. And so the end goal becomes communal. It becomes, spiritual, and not just functional, which again, it's so easy to just slide into kind of this functional tech.
Yeah. I think, what you're saying there, Glenn, is so true. And I think church leaders and pastors, it behooves us to give it much of our attention. I have discovered because the companies that make these technologies, like all for-profit companies, they have a particular bottom line. And that bottom line is driven primarily by attention, by human attention. We live in what has been commonly called now the attention economy.
Yes.
So Tristan Harris, the Center for Humane Design, he's the first person I heard say this. Basically, he says, when you go to your app store and you download an app, whether it is Instagram or X or your church app, it's free. Almost always it's free. And then Tristan Harris is the one who said, nothing's free. If it's free to you, you are the product.
You are the product. That's right.
You are the product.
That's right.
Being so, and by you, he means specifically it's our attention. And I think church leaders and churches and pastors, we have a real opportunity here to sort of, transcend the economic structure of digital technology. And again, leverage these tools to be a gift for our people. And one of the things that's been helpful for us is, as a team, we've talked about this, digital technologies are by design created to grow at speed and at scale. So pastoring is slow and it's very
inefficient.
personal. It's inefficient. And so one of the things we say is like, yeah, the tool left to itself will just push us towards speed and scale. What we're looking for as church leaders is symmetry. And what that means is we are trying to align everything we do to the very real lived lives of our people. Rather than say, this is again, it goes back to the for you or from you thing. Rather than saying, here's where we're going and we're going there fast and we're going to get real big real fast. So just get on the bus. Rather than doing that, we're asking questions. How do we use these tools to become symmetrical, aligned to the real lives of our people? So before we jumped on this call, we were talking about some conversations I'm having with people who are in tech right here in our church. And we're trying to slow down for them, because their life is all about speed and scale. We're trying to slow down, but there's ways to use the tools to our advantage to do that. But I think, again, it just requires real thoughtfulness.
Let's talk about AI. According to this research that Barna has done, AI adoption in church, it's emerging. And this is the kind of thing that every day there's something new. I mean, I've talked to a few folks in tech, and you talked to 10 times more, I'm sure, who have said, yeah, a year ago, we thought it wasn't going to replace these kinds of jobs. Now it is replacing these kinds of jobs. So there's an economic reality. There's a disruption for sure. But 1 in 3 churches say they're using AI in some part of its ministry or operations. If AI is aggregated intelligence, I mean, some of the ways we've used that here is we, on a private version of it, paid and private version of it, we have uploaded, our spreadsheets from the last 3 years and go, hey, track some trends, spike seasons, dip seasons, year over year stuff, so it's aggregated intelligence helpful there. But where are you seeing AI genuinely as helpful to church leaders and even to congregants?
Yeah, I mean, AI is, conversations around AI, it is, front and center for so many of us. The first thing I'll say is I think we're really early, and that means that we should speak humbly and cautiously.
Would you say we need to listen, speak, like your book, Jay, like your book tells us? Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot I wrote that book actually. I think we're really early, and no matter what the pundits say, the truth is, I don't think anyone really knows for sure where all of this is headed. What is true is that we seem to be headed wherever we're headed with this technology much faster than previous technologies. So I think that's where the anxiety comes from. It feels so uncertain, but it feels also like every single day there's a new sort of leap that AI makes, and all of that is true. So, I think offering non-anxious presence really matters a great deal right now. So for pastors and church leaders, it matters a great deal that we take a deep breath and remind ourselves of the timeless sort of universal, historic, global unfolding story of God through the local church. And there is no technology that's going to usurp that or upend that. So to find our confidence there and offer that confidence and comfort as a gift to our people, I think is going to really matter, because our people are asking questions like, is my job going to go away? You know, am I still going to be, will there be teachers in the future? Will there be whatever? But at the same time, I mean, we've begun leveraging AI in similar ways where, we ask it to assist in synthesizing and collating information. To organize and, but we are really clear as a team. We will never ask artificial intelligence to give us meaning.
No, that's
to
good.
help us really sort of make pastoral sense of the information. So we're leveraging it, as a way to synthesize and collate and organize information, but not breathe meaning or purpose or pastoral insight into the information. That's a human experience that I think needs to involve the Spirit of God. And
I love that, because even for preachers, you know, AI, there are some great Bible study softwares now that aren't using AI to scan the web, but using AI to scan your digital library, which is a cool feature. And there's advanced versions of research type AI that I've used where I go, hey, here are the scholars I want you to pull from, any of their work that's on web journal articles, blah, 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 footnote it for me. And then, you know, it can aggregate research. But to write a sermon requires the work of prayer, discernment about what is a word from God that our church needs right now. What is a word from God for our people in this season? And that's what you're describing as meaning work versus research work or aggregating work, which is really amazing. Jay, you had a convo with Andy Crouch about this on a Practicing the Way thing, and I thought you and Andy really got to this place where you talked about the gift of human presence. And I may butcher this, but you guys talked about fear, guilt, and shame as like primal human needs. And when I think about this, Jay, I think it's one thing to have auxiliary intelligence or aggregate intelligence, but the difference between intelligence and presence. And you just said this, non-anxious presence. Presence, to someone who's afraid, presence says, I am with you. To someone who's guilty, presence says, I forgive you. To someone who's ashamed, the presence says, you belong here. You're working on a book, you're releasing a book called The Pace of Peace. Like, what's the link here between presence and peace in a world that is being disrupted and disoriented by AI and by tech?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. And it's a question I'm asking all the time. I think there's a paradox. This is my sort of working language around it. There's probably a better way to put it, but I've been thinking a lot very recently, actually, about the paradox of personhood. And I just read an article recently that was sort of expanding on and making sense of some research done at Yale, where, and the research was done a number of years ago, but it was basically about all of these strange paradoxes in human experience. So the best way to describe it would be like when we talk about people crying tears of joy, or we think about nervous laughter, or when I see my newborn niece, who I will see tomorrow, she's got these giant cheeks that are just flowing from her face. And I love her so much, I pinch her cheeks, which pinching functionally is an expression of pain.
So
one could argue I am hurting her, but I'm not, but I am. I'm pinching her cheeks. What is that? Why do we cry tears of joy? Why do we laugh when we're nervous? Why do we pinch cheeks? Because we love them so much. We cause pain. These are like like real embodied examples of the paradox of personhood, you know. Why does Sarah laugh when the promise she's been waiting for is finally fulfilled, at least verbally? You're going to have a child. And she laughs incredulously, you know, because she can't believe it. It's like there's so much there. And what's interesting about AI, again, it is so good at giving us the thing that we think we need. And, you know, I have this data, I need it collated, I need it synthesized, I need it organized, boom, so quicker than a human being could do. Another thing about AI is it can never offer you silence. So as an example, like the machinery is designed, it cannot just be silent with you. If it is silent, it's not functioning. You know, it functions with words, and it is a large language model. It's based on language and input and output and that exchange. But all of us know sometimes, again, the paradox of personhood, sometimes when we're in those moments, and for church leaders and pastors, we know sometimes we're in these moments where congregants come into our office and they are in such a deep, dark valley, and we sense in our spirit and in our bodies, the thing this person needs right now is not my explanation or my theology or an answer. What they need is my quiet, gentle, loving presence. And that's the paradox of personhood.
Yeah.
And there is no machine, there is no technology ever. Like that, there will never be a technology that will be able to offer us that. And to me, that is a source of great hope, great comfort, and great confidence. And I think that's true, not just for pastors or for church leaders. It's true for all of us. So whatever line of work we are in, can we ask that question? Is there a slice of this work that is that only a human being could do? That only a human could ever do, you know? And I don't have the answer to that question, but I think asking that question
it's so good.
is a step forward.
That's so good.
Yeah.
The paradox of personhood is the unpredictability of presence. That's what you're saying, because LLMs are built on predictability and pattern recognition.
Yes.
And the paradox of personhood is the unpredictability of presence. That's amazing, man. And, you know, on a spiritual level, theological level, it's the presence of God too. Like that, God surprises us. Sometimes he surprises us with miracles. Sometimes he surprises us by his silence. Sometimes he surprises us by speaking, you know. So I just think it'd be appropriate here, Jay. We don't always do this, but I'd love for you to pray for our listeners right now, for wisdom, for peace, you know, for the pace of peace, as we navigate these difficult, changing, you know, rapidly evolving kind of cultural moments.
Yeah, would be an honor to pray. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, even now through this digital medium, we know that in your timeless transcendence, you are here with us, as near as our very next breath. And so we pray that you, in your love, would grant us peace, and that you would grant us relief from our anxiety, that you would give us courage for our fear, that you would give us confidence and comfort in the face of all that feels so uncertain in our personal lives, in our pastoral and ministry lives, and for our churches and our organizations, for the people that you've called us to serve. We pray that you would give us wisdom to know the directions you would and would not have us go, and that you would give us enough faith, enough trust, that despite what culture says, that we would move at your pace, and that we would go in your direction. And as we do, that we would find deep meaning and joy knowing that you are leading the way and that you are the author of our stories and the story of the world. And we don't need to live with the burden of writing that story. We can trust you to write it and find our place in that story. So we thank you and we love you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jay. Well, wow, so many directions to keep taking that, but thank you for joining us on the Resilient Pastor Podcast. If this conversation encouraged you, share it with a fellow pastor or leader. You can always find more Barna research and resources at barna.com. Once again, thank you to World Vision, one of our key partners here. They, together with Danielle Strickland, 10 by 10, and the Barna team, created a free resource to equip parents, pastors, and leaders as you guide the spiritual lives of kids and teens in your care. So download Parenting the Open Generation at worldvision.org/resilient26. Once again, this episode is brought to you by PushPay, the leading payments and engagement provider for mission-based organizations. Visit pushpay.com to explore how their digital solutions can support your mission and your vision for the future of your ministry. Thanks for watching and listening to the Resilient Pastor Podcast. We'll see you next time.